Hey everybody, this is Perch. We got an artist seeking guidance. Let's see what we got here. It says, "Hey Perch, love your channel and your level-headed approach. It's my calm and boring voice. That's what it is. I've been listening for some time and want to see your take on pursuing comic art. I've got 3 kids, currently working e-commerce, nothing fancy. With all the payment issues and generally low pay, what would you recommend to be an artist? Here is a link to my portfolio. Be open to doing any work that pays. I dream of making my living off art, and I'm willing to wait for better opportunities if that's what it takes." So I get these mails from time to time, and I'm not sure if this person wants me to promote them or not. You are being linked to Perchington here, but the portfolio that's linked on over here on ArtStation looks really nice. The work looks good. It's black and white toned art. There's 3 color ones in there, but definitely looks good. Looks like something that easily could be in the big two. Has kind of a Sean Murphy type look to it in some ways, a little bit of a sketchy feel, but it looks really nice. So you know, the talent is there, I guess is a way to put it. So to the heart of the video, though, what should an artist do? I think you already cited one, and it's, as we've said in other videos, it's a little painful, but it's the right thing to do. And that's make sure you have a good, stable job, particularly if you have a family. Have a good, stable job outside of comics, and that will it will hurt and sting a little bit because you'll think all the time you're doing this job that who knows you may or may like. I mean, if you get really lucky, you get a job you actually kind of enjoy or is for a good cause. I'm doing a job right now that is for a good cause. I absolutely don't enjoy it, but it is for a the cause is too great. Even if I thoroughly hated every second of it, I'd still probably do what I'm doing right now because it's the right thing to do. But hopefully you get something you kind of enjoy. It's hard to think about all the art you could be doing, all the progress you could be making on your true dream comics while you're doing this job. But the problem is if you're trying to survive on just the low pay and just the comic art itself, especially at the beginning, I think it has a huge chance of derailing you. Now it's a balance because, at the same time, honing your craft. You've heard people talk on this show who stayed true and just did art. And they slept in cars and they suffered for their art and they got to where they were. And that's a great story. And there's definitely a route there. And I think it'd be a wonderful debate. I'd love to have that. Maybe I should grab a bunch of art. Grab like Kari Andrews and Dan Panosian and Sean and a couple others. And it'd be a good debate to have. What should you do? Because there is a balance between, sometimes to really perfect your craft and to make it meaningful and worthwhile, you need to suffer a little bit. There's that point of view, and it's not entirely wrong. It's not necessarily the suffering; it's just more the working through grit. But you have a family of kids. I mean, it's a lot of pressure to survive on just an artist salary at the beginning, before you're known. It's not an easy route. So I think, making the home life stable, making it decent, even if it takes some time away from your art, is probably a good idea. But, having done that and having kind of the stable financial bed that prevents you from getting distracted by, poverty, then I think that, it gets to kind of doing what's done, in the portfolio you sent me, getting your stuff out there. I've heard lots of artists say, never draw characters that aren't your own. Basically, only fill up your portfolio with self-owned stuff. For what it's worth, having talked to a lot of editors over time, editors want to see those images of you drawing their characters. And what a lot of people do is they have kind of the hero image or the splash image of, Marvel and DC characters, but then they'll use your characters or, things that aren't corporate owned to show examples of panels. I think this is my advice, but I'm only repeating what I've heard in a lot of places. A lot of artists show up and they have portfolios filled with covers and splash pages and just big kind of interesting pieces of art. And you need plenty of those to kind of pop the attention of who's looking, but you need to in there, fit in a, 4 to 5 page sequential art series where the character is not doing something mundane. You don't have to take it all the way down to them having lunch, but just, like Peter Parker shows up in the Daily Bugle and he's trying to sell some photos there. I know this is stated, but, and there's, J. Jonah Jameson and there's Robbie, and, you convey the emotion of the situation of Peter's trying to sell the photos and Jameson doesn't want them. And then Peter tries, starts to go away, and then Jameson coughs up some cash, but it's not enough cash. And Peter's looking kind of like, brief victory, but then disheartened because he's, still poor. I like being able to do that stuff is important. And if your portfolio is filled with nothing but kind of splash images, so here's Spider-Man swinging around a building, a couple of those cool, but when you get a comic gig, they're going to want you to, do that other stuff too. Comics are more than just splash images. So I think showing kind of that wide variety of you can actually be a storyteller through your pages and through your art is really important. And for some reason, it is something that people forget. And some of it's, making it dynamic, like, have your character is late for something. You don't know, but they're in their apartment. They're late for something. They're rushing down. They're trying to get a cab. The cab pulls away. They're scrambling to try and get to where they're getting. You can tell a lot of action in those sequences, but still you're telling a story. I think that's the best thing I can do for you, or the biggest piece of advice that I see a lot of people blow is they just don't do that. They just do splash images. And then I think, getting some, if not a mentor, and here's where some people are more open to it than others, but striking up a relationship with other artists where you can kind of show stuff, if they give you tips, great, but just, many artists and creatives will get, I would say, edgy or nervous about giving you advice. I know Brett Booth used to do this, maybe he still does, on Twitter. He would give kind of critique on art. And there's definitely some artists that will do that, but a lot won't. And those that don't will still, there again, some exceptions, but will still give you advice on the industry itself. Like, hey, I feel uncomfortable talking about your art, but what I can do and will do is talk to you about, what it means to, build a portfolio, or tips when talking to an editor, or, how to get a relationship with writers, or, that kind of stuff. You could get some really good advice from other artists around what they've done, not just with the art, but around the business itself. I think some will tell you, go and, buddy up with a writer. I think I've heard that a lot. Like, if you're an artist, go make good friends with a writer and start to build that network there. And I get the logic. It's the same logic that, Stegman and Donny Cates used to do a lot of and there's tons of examples of that where you have writer artists. The downside, though, and this is where I would not have this be your priority. The downside is that you can get kind of pigeonholed into that writer. You can get uncomfortable if you take a gig without that writer. And it could be, the relationship can become weird very fast. And remember, if you're tying yourself to a writer, then you're making a situation where the publisher basically has to take a package deal. And in a lot of cases, the publisher has a writer already attached to a project, and they're looking for an artist to come in and work with that person. Another piece of advice that I've had given is when showing a portfolio, and I've seen some people do this on Instagram, when they post the pages, in this case, back to the sequential art, when they post a page of some stuff going on, post the text that goes with that page. So the person who's reviewing it can see how you interpreted the writer's notes and information for that page into the art. And if you want to get really fancy with it, go grab a couple different, writer styles. Like grab, you can find these if you put examples of writer scripts for comics into Google. You can pull up a couple different, you can pull up a sample page from Kurt Busiek and Bendis and a few others that have very, very different styles of how they write comics. And so if you post up a couple pages for each, then what you're telling the editor is that hey, I'm versatile, and I know how to work with a bunch of different styles. So That's some advice. I hope it's helpful. And thanks for listening.